You may have seen my natural hair looking like this, and this on social media, but make no mistake, I've also experienced breakage, I've seen breakage, and I've researched on issues such as this over the years. From the trauma of seeing hair on the floor to collecting massive chunks of hair, this is the last time you have to worry about it, and there's some big period. Breakage can be quite frustrating and disheartening, especially if you feel like you're doing your best to take care of your hair. Most of the time it can be neglect. You need to just pay a little bit more attention to your hair. But breakage is an indication that something is wrong, right? So your hair is trying to help you to figure out how best to take care of it because something is wrong. I think it's important to not make our hair the villain. If you can overcome the breakage, you will see how easy natural hair can be. Ninjani, it's Zinhle Africa, and I'm so grateful to have you here. So breakage is a huge topic and a lot of people are experiencing it, judging by the comments, the DMs that I'm getting, even through my emails. So I know this is extremely important to a lot of you, and I had to get this video out as soon as possible. So let's get into it. In terms of the differences between shedding and breakage, hair shedding concerns the scalp and the hair strands come out with the bulbs, so you know that they're coming straight from the scalp. And with hair breakage, it concerns the hair strands, and the hair that comes out is usually in shorter, broken pieces. Please understand that shedding can be normal and breakage can also be normal. On average, we shed 50 to 100 hair strands a day. And in terms of hair breakage, it can be normal if it is at its total minimum, because when we manipulate our hair, any way that we do it, no matter how gentle you are, you will get a little bit of breakage. That is normal. But the more frequent you do it, the more harsh you are, that's when it will start to be a problem. The more you manipulate your hair, the more you're in your hair, and with so many other factors that we are going to be discussing in this video, hair breakage will then start to come out in larger quantities, resulting in gaps and thinning. And then when it comes to hair shedding, it comes out in those large clumps and in quantities that are definitely going to alarm you, because you know what you usually lose and it just might be a lot more than usual. There are so many causes to hair shedding that I'm not going to delve deep into in this video, but maybe in the future. And because hair shedding is an issue of the scalp, you will see that with excessive hair shedding comes bald spots. If you're still not sure if you have shedding or breakage, please look at these pictures right here. These pictures are an example of what I see as severe breakage. This is when some people would even cut at that line of demarcation, but I would never go that far without giving the hair a bit of a chance just to see what happens. Maybe it won't be so obvious once that new growth has come in. It's quite rare to experience breakage when your hair is moisturized. So the first thing to get right in terms of, if you're experiencing breakage is to really look into how you moisturize your hair. Firstly, it is important to know how to moisturize your hair, and then it's also important to know what to moisturize your hair with. If you can get these things to work together, now we're talking. Now there's progress, right? So a lot of the time people are seeing a lot of breakage because between these two things, something is wrong, okay? So in terms of how to moisturize your hair, there's LCO and then there's LOC. I will always say that LCO is better than LOC. So L is for liquid, C is for cream or any butter or moisturizer that you have, and O is for the oil that you use to seal in all that moisture and hydration that you have applied on the hair. And yes, it is really those 3 steps, and they don't take long. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. And how often you moisturize your hair, that depends on how often your hair actually gets dry. Sometimes it's to do with the products, sometimes it's to do with the environment that you're in, sometimes it's to do with so many other factors. But at the end of the day, you should never let your hair get too dry, because by the time it's too dry, it's gonna give you problems, and that's when we get into issues like breakage. So now that we have an understanding of how to moisturize the hair, now let's look into products. I'm not gonna go in depth too much about products, but if you feel like you're doing everything right, that's when you really need to take a closer look at the products that you have chosen for your hair. I will always say natural organic ingredients are better. The more natural ingredients are in the product, the better it is for your hair, because these are things that have been used on our hair, on our ancestors' hair for thousands and thousands of years, since the beginning of time. And these products are quite modern. They just came out right now. So who are you going to pick? Who has a better track record, right? So it's very important that you prioritize having more quality ingredients in your products, and the best quality ingredients are natural ingredients. I say what I say. So wherever you are in the world, whatever your budget is, always invest, always buy more organic products. But another thing about products is that please don't apply your products on dry hair. Like, spritz a little bit of water. Like, that LCO is very important. Spritzing it with water and then going in with your products, you're giving them a better chance of working. So sometimes we use products and we think that they aren't working, but we aren't using them in the best way possible. So it's so important that we follow these steps so that we're applying the products properly, because if you aren't, then you'll get things like breakage. I always say this, what I love about natural hair is that it will tell you immediately when it loves something and when it doesn't love something. And after you've applied a certain product, look at your hair after a few days. Is it really moisturized? Is it still breaking? Because that means the products aren't working. So this is the best way that you can make sure that your products and your routine are working for you, right? So now that we have established that dry hair doesn't show progress, dry hair is just inviting breakage, guys. Dry hair is an absolute no-no. If you see that your hair is dry, do something about it before it's too late, because breakage, you really have to be on top of it, because breakage is like looking at you just ready to chow your hair. So make sure that you moisturize your hair, and over time you will understand your hair a lot more. But out of everything else, guys, dry hair, there's no success with dry hair. The success in your natural hair journey comes with moisturized, healthy hair. At this point, we have moisturized hair. And now it's important to handle this moisturized hair in the best way possible so that we don't get that breakage. This is where over manipulation comes in. This is where protective hairstyle comes in. This is where any kind of hairstyle comes in, actually. You have to be really smart about how you style your hair in ways of preventing more breakage, right? So first thing is to make sure that our ends are healthy. We're starting off on a clean slate. So if you can dust your ends or you can trim your ends, that would be great, because now we're starting off a new routine. We're starting things off properly, and we don't want, bad dead ends on a new on the new leaf that we're turning, because we don't want that breakage anymore. And if you really look at your ends, they're probably not in the best condition if you are experiencing breakage anyways. So this is where I would love to just encourage you to make sure that your ends are good, before you put them in that style. You can do a low manipulation style, you can do a protective hairstyle, but the trick is to not expose your ends, because this is where we're experiencing trouble, right? Even though breakage can happen at any point of the hair strand, usually it is the ends that get us. So tucking your hair is extremely important. These hairstyles are cute. These hairstyles are, there's nothing wrong with them, but the problem is if you wear your hair like this all the time, it's going to be very difficult for you to see length retention, right? For you to see your hair, for you to visibly see your hair growing down your back, your bum, your legs. You know, they're quite vulnerable. In the 2 years where I wasn't seeing growth in my hair, I was doing a lot of these styles. I don't want to lie to you. I was doing a lot of these styles. I was enjoying my hair, but I had no idea that I was actually hurting my hair because my ends weren't protected. And like, oh guys, this is so important. This is so important to protect your ends. It is so important to protect your ends. And it's also a reason why we shouldn't be too much in our hair. Like if you're always combing, if you're always busy in your hair, you're doing different styles, your ends are out, you're gonna have a beautiful time, you're gonna enjoy your hair, congratulations. But when it comes to length retention, when it comes to you seeing that length, it's going to be very difficult for you. A lot of people, when they're still newly natural, one thing that they'll do is that they'll comb their hair out in an afro in the morning, and then later on in the evening they will plait their hair just to maintain that stretch. The next morning they unravel the braids that they put in or the twists, and then they comb their hair, and it's the same thing again and again and again and again. And it's like, that's over manipulation. That is an example of over manipulation. It can be great for a few days, but it's not going to help you in a few weeks, in a few months of you just always combing your hair and always being in your hair. So protective hairstyling is so important. That is why I'm always such an advocate of protective hairstyling. But sometimes you want to do a low manipulation style, which is fine, but always tuck in your ends. Don't let your ends be exposed. Before I get into the last section of this video, I also want to just stress about how important it is to gently handle your hair, because the more gentle you are, the less breakage you will experience. It doesn't help to have a protective hairstyle in for a month, and then by the time you take the protective hairstyle out, you're now going crazy with a comb and a brush and all these things, because you'll still see a lot of breakage, you know. So it's really important to be gentle, tuck those ends in, and then maintain that moisture in that protective hairstyle. One thing you'll notice about people that have been natural for a really long time, they prioritize their ends like nobody's business, okay? And I'm the same way. I hardly ever expose my ends, ever. And that is why I love protective hairstyles so much. There are different techniques that you can use to protect your ends, right? Some people do wash and goes and they still protect their ends. Some people, you know, will do twist and still protect their ends. There's so many ways to do it, right? And some people will have their hair out in an afro but still kind of protect their ends. It's quite interesting, but at the end of the day, it is a way to prevent that breakage. The next hairstyle that you do, you know, for the next few weeks and months, please practice one of these methods in protecting your ends. The first method is using gel on your ends. So if you're doing twists, braids, whichever it is, and it's all your natural hair, and I've seen some people even make sure that in a wash and go, you know, they use a lot of gel so that, you know, they can protect their ends. That is one way to do it. The second way to do it is by tucking your ends in. So if you are, you know, tying your hair up in a bun, you can just tuck in your hair and not have those ends exposed. The third way to protect your ends is to use tiny bantu knots. This technique doesn't have a name really, but I'm just going to call them tiny bantu knots. So at the end of every braid or at the end of each section of your hair, you do a very small bantu knot that will protect the hair as well. It also just protects your ends and it works just as well as the other methods. The last method to protect your ends is adding extensions. So yes, of course, the people that still want to use extensions can use extensions on their hair, and that will protect the hair, of course, fine. One thing that I do personally that I haven't seen a lot of people do, and I might be the first person to do it, I think, because I've never seen another person do it. But what I do is I don't like using extensions on my hair anymore. I see a lot more health, a lot more growth, a lot more, length retention, moisture retention when I don't use any extensions. But I do use my Brazilian wool, and I take a little bit of Brazilian wool and I put it on the ends of my hair and I twist it in. The next protective hairstyle that I do will definitely be braids, so I'll make sure that I show you exactly how I do that technique. Just putting a little bit of extensions at the end of your natural hair is also really, really, really good in terms of protecting your ends. I never leave my ends exposed, and for me it is just like a non-negotiable, because I know what happens when you leave your ends exposed, and then especially if they're gonna be dry. If your ends are exposed and dry, you're definitely going to get breakage. You will definitely get breakage. As I end this video off here, I just want to remind you that it's so important that we take care of the roots of the hair, we take care of the lengths of the hair, and then we take care of the ends as well. When it comes to breakage, a lot more focus has to be on the ends. These are the methods that you can use. And also, can we just remember that dry hair doesn't grow long? It's just asking for problems, and we don't want problems. So make sure you're also gentle, you don't over manipulate your hair, and you choose the right style for you. Other than that, I think that's it. Make sure that you are subscribed. You comment down below if there's anything I left out, you want to ask anything, please feel free to comment down below, and I'll make sure that I get back to you and I answer you. And I'm there and we can have a conversation. Also, don't forget to like this video. Other than that, love, light, and blessings to you. Bye. Mwah.